welcome to this part two of this webinar from Tipsy Math. My name is Michael Dorf. I have many hats, but the hat I have right now is I am the executive director of Tipsy. And we're going to have this discussion on this issue of what's happening in higher ed, and in particular, what are these changes and how are they affecting the mathematics departments? Let me give you just a little bit of background. For whatever reason, I like to read, and I've been reading articles about what's happening in higher ed. And a trend now is that there are universities who are cutting back on departments and programs. I have a list that I've collected of in the last few years. There's a list I have of at least 25 different universities and colleges that have publicly announced that they're cutting back in different departments and different programs and majors and faculty members. I don't think that these are not isolated cases, and this will probably continue to happen. We're all, I think, familiar with the case of West Virginia and the impact it had on mathematics departments. And when I say these 25 institutions, they're not, in many cases, and what we hear often is that these are departments, programs, majors in the humanities, languages, but it's also happening in STEM fields and in particular in mathematics. So it's not just non-STEM fields. And West Virginia is I think the most visible case of it happening in a mathematics department. So we've brought together 4 people who have experience and insight into this topic. We have Bill Velez, who is retired from the University of Arizona, done great work in recruiting and getting more underrepresented students into the mathematics program in Arizona. We have Sandy Spitzer, who is department chair at Towson University. Michael Shuckers, who is department chair at St. Louis University, and Scott Wolpert, who is a retired associate dean and former department chair at University of Maryland. Bill, it sounds like Bill's still having problems with audio.
Bill's having audio trouble. He's going to log back on.
I think I just, I think.
Oh, great. Okay.
Great.
So so each of the panelists are going to take a few minutes, saying about 7 minutes, to give some thoughts and ideas of this, and these could be reasons why these departments are having cuts, possible solutions, what they've seen as effective or whatever. And 7 minutes is not a lot of time, so they're going to just give a few ideas related to their topics. And then after they're done, we're going to have some Q&A, and then we'll close with about 5 minutes or so before the top of the hour, so everybody can get to their teaching or whatever they have next. So Bill, if you're okay, could you go first?
Okay.
Yes. So we'll go in the order: Bill first, then Sandy, then Michael, and then end up with Scott.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we have all heard about some of the issues that universities are having. And one question that I have for our department is your department relevant to your university? So how tied in is your mathematics department to the goals of the university, to the intellectual activities? Now, I think that one of the factors that has helped us tremendously is the fact that we encourage students to have double majors. So to have a major in math and a major in something else. And one of the things that occurs when this happens is that I have often seen the outstanding graduating senior in some department, chemistry, engineering, they're also a math major. Now, that can't be lost on the administration. So I think that students should major in mathematics. And one of the things that I've seen is that students who major in math and X are more competitive for graduate programs in X. And if you add the math major to your resume and you're interviewing for jobs, interviewers notice the math major. In fact, I just had a student come in yesterday who's graduating, and he's a mining engineer, and he thought that he got his first interview because of the added math major. And it's just that mathematics is now so important, but it's not that mathematics has changed, it's the applications of mathematics tied to computing that's made a big difference. Of course, we all know that that a math major brings to the table this attention to detail and precision, and I think that is what makes us more competitive. So this business of having the administration notice mathematics, this was brought to the forefront many years ago. We had 4 Goldwater scholars one particular year. 3 of them were math majors, and 1 of them was a math minor. And again, the president is presenting these students, so it can't be lost on them. Now, none of these students went to graduate school in mathematics, but I'm positive that the mathematics major made them more competitive for the graduate programs that they applied to. There was a IES summit in September, and Dr. Bernard Harris stated that more than half of the jobs of the future have not yet been created. What would be a good preparation for those positions? No question, math majors with a background in programming. And of course, you've already heard about West Virginia, among other things. So, and there's also an article in Focus that Michael wrote on the situation at a number of universities that are closing down their math programs. This is just inconceivable. And again, I think that if math departments made themselves relevant to the education of their undergraduates and to the research activities of the university, that it would be much more difficult to even think about closing mathematics major programs down. And I will stop there.
Thank you, Bill. Sandy.
Can you all see my screen okay? All right, great. So I just wanted to start by introducing myself and situating my work. My name is Sandy Spitzer. I'm the department chair of the math department at Towson University. And I think I'm a little bit unique as a math department chair because my background is actually as a mathematics educator. I have a BS in pure math from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. But after that, all my master's and PhD have all been from colleges of education. I've worked here in the department for about 18 years. And so I think I bring sort of a unique perspective on this problem, just because I'm used to addressing educational challenges. Here in the math department, it's a really big department, 55 full-time faculty, 65 adjuncts. We have a high reliance on adjuncts like many departments at large comprehensive universities. And we produce over 17,000 student credit hours annually. So every problem that we have has to be solved at scale. We've definitely been having challenges with enrollment in the math major at Towson. So here's some data from about the past 10 years. And you can see that over the past 10 years, our enrollment in the math major itself has gone down by about 50%. Now, all this sort of predates my term as chair. So my goal over the next 3 to 6 years is really to turn that around. And when I looked at it, when I started considering doing this job, I noticed that basically all 4 of our concentrations are seeing declines year over year. There was a significant dip around the start of the pandemic, but the declines that we're seeing are not caused by the pandemic. They predate the pandemic. So the solutions that we have to think about have to be broader than just addressing the impacts of the pandemic. Since I'm new, I've been trying to think about some really specific strategies for what I think of as being to first slow the trend of declining enrollment, then stop it, then turn it around and start growing our enrollment. So here's the sort of 6 strategies that I've been working on. And they all look a little bit different for each of our concentrations. So recruiting people into secondary math education looks really different than recruiting them into actuarial science. But all of them are around these 6 strategies. So the first one is to reach out to high schoolers. We know there's a lot of students in Maryland who want to be math majors, and Towson University has not always been their sort of destination of choice. So we're doing things like a math competition to bring more talented high school students to the campus and get them aware of the things that we offer. I think a recruiting strategy that's linked to what Bill was talking about that maybe has been like less focused on in the past is finding existing Towson University students and bringing them into the math major. To me, this is some ways an easier lift than finding high school kids who are interested in math because they're already Towson students. So we're doing things like publicity in all our Calc 1 classes and again in Calc 2. So if you're enjoying your Calc class, maybe you came to Towson and wanted to be a CS major, but you found you love math, you can come and join us on the light side. Towson draws heavily from community colleges, so I've been working on making it easier for students who start at community college to come in and complete the math major here. Our challenge for that is that we have one specific class that students usually take in their first 2 years that is not offered at any community colleges, and it's a prerequisite for all the courses that follow. So it's a real challenge to find a way for someone to come from community college and finish in 2 years at Towson. That's a problem I'm trying to solve that I think could have some real inroads. And we have 3 graduate programs, so recruiting for graduate students just has to happen in a different way. And then in terms of increasing our number of majors, aside from bringing students into the major, a way to do that numerically is to retain the students that we have. So we've been doing things like we made a math majors lounge so that they have a space to build community, and we're putting on specific math major programming, some of which looks like sort of tutoring groups for our upper division courses, but some of which is just meant to be community building. And then a long-term strategy is to build new academic programs that attract students. So right now we're in the early stages of thinking through what it would look like to start a data science program here in the math major. All of that is going to take time. And one of the things that's clear to me from this data is that no matter how many people start as a math major, say in the next 2 years, we're going to be looking at some lean years as our small freshman class works its way through the major. So in the meantime, while we're working on getting more students and increasing our major enrollment, the way that I feel is important to demonstrate our value to the university is through our teaching of foundational courses and courses that primarily serve other majors. So this is a place that I feel really well placed as a math educator to make an impact because my dissertation was about high school mathematics, and a lot of the content of our foundational courses is in that same area. So one of the things I'm really working hard on is improving the teaching and learning in our foundational and service courses. One thing we're doing is working on coordination policies so that students are getting a consistent experience across sections. This semester, we have over 30 sections of our college algebra class. So figuring out how a C for any student in that class will be preparatory at a basic level for the class that comes after is something that I think is really important to support student success as they go through these pathways. A real problem we're struggling with in our foundational classes is figuring out just how to place students in the right spot and then give them options so that they can complete a full pathway successfully. And finally, another issue we have is our high reliance on adjuncts. And so although the university is not super willing to invest in tenure track faculty lines, given our declining enrollment in the major, advocating for lecturer positions allows us to have more coordination at those foundational levels, even because our student credit hour is still at a really high level. Another strategy I've been working on is thinking about ways to give the math department more visibility as a positive partner in the university's business. So I think this again echoes some of the things that Bill talked about just making sure that the people in the admin building know that we're here to support all the students of Towson University. Well, everyone who starts at Towson is going to come through the math department's doors at least once in their career. So some of the higher visibility things we do is a math summer boot camp for all incoming STEM majors. They're invited to join a summer boot camp, which runs the 1 week before the semester starts. So they're allowed to move into their on-campus housing early, and they get meals in the dining halls through that whole week. And then we give them targeted student support, things like skills practice, as well as problem-solving opportunities, chances to work with faculty and ULAs. Another piece of our support program that follows on the boot camp is what we're calling companion courses. This is an optional recitation section that students sign up for 1 credit hour that's run by undergraduate learning assistants and supervised by faculty members. You know, a challenge we have at Towson is that nearly all our graduate students are part-time, so most of them can't participate in the education of undergrads in the way that might be more reasonable in an R1 institution. And finally, we're doing things like offering acceleration and remediation options in the winter term. So for students who start in the very first piece of our placement, we give them a chance to complete the second course in our January, what we call mini-mester, so they can complete the full sequence by the end of 1 academic year. And what's good about all these programs, good and bad, is that they all require the support of the provost's office to run. So when we have these sort of planning meetings about how we're doing it, we are able to communicate to the provost's office and the president's office that the math department is here with the goal of supporting students, of helping them complete their math requirements in a way that is supportive of their work across the majors of Towson, and that we want them to pass, we want them to be quantitatively literate, and that we are here to support the university in that way. So that's all I had. I'm going to stop sharing.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Now we'll hear from Michael Shuckers.
Let's see. Excellent. First, thanks to the organizers for this. Happy to be here. Just a note here in terms of this. In terms of me, this is my 21st year at St. Lawrence. Before that, I spent 3 years at the aforementioned West Virginia University, but I'm a statistician, so a bit of an outsider here. And the department that I currently chair is a mathematics, computer science, and statistics one. A little bit more about us is liberal arts college in northern New York, so where that star is way up high in New York State, closer to Ottawa than to Syracuse. Little over 2,000 students. We're good, but not a great liberal arts college. And as I mentioned, we're a department that is mathematics and computer science and statistics. We're 15 plus we are hiring. So we are a place that is growing. So we will add a data scientist this year. And we will add a mathematician as a replacement for a mathematician that left for family reasons. So we'll be 6 mathematicians, 5 statisticians, 4 computer scientists, and a data scientist. We have majors in all 4 of those areas, and there's the dates where those happened. Over the last decade, about 10% of our graduating class has a degree from our department. So here's what the last 20-ish sort of years look like. There's a little bit of cannibalization there from statistics taking from mathematics majors. But in general, the overall trend has been growth in our department. So statistics added, data science added there. I think of what we do as having sort of 3 pillars. The first is our curriculum. Because we are a liberal arts college, our goal is liberally educated, rigorous thinking citizens, not mathematicians. We view our early courses as pumps, not filters, as way to attract people and get them to be majors. Our calculus sequence is applied, as is our stat major. So if you know stat education, you'll know that GAYS acronym. And we have very little probability in our intro stats course. We let the intro stats and the intro computer science course, so Bill mentioned programming. Those are courses that both count for the math major and the math minor. And those are ways that we can get people into our department. We also have a strong tradition of sort of one-on-one senior projects and working with students in the summer. Let's see. Second pillar is that we really try to build a community of folks in our department. So we have about every other week, we have what we call Q Club. We offer free food, and it's usually a student giving a talk about senior research or an internship that they did. We take students to regional undergraduate conferences. We do a majors dinner where we take all of our majors out to dinner at a restaurant in town. We do other events. Sandy mentioned high school competition. So we have a Pi Mu Epsilon competition. We also do a somewhat ridiculous event of trying to do a Piathlon on March 14th. But as part of that building community, we hire faculty willing to invest time and that sort of community. And we can be, because we are only undergraduates, somewhat agnostic on the sub-discipline. There are some downsides to that. I think one of the weaknesses of our department is we don't really have an upper level applied mathematics course. We also have a very strong free drop-in tutoring center. And that center is located very close to our department offices and where many of our classes are held. And so students go there and spend a lot of time there, and that further builds some community. We also allow students, and we encourage students, because we are one joint department, to do easy moving and sliding between the majors in our department. And the last one is this intentionally thinking about equity. A lot of our diversity, given how our rural location, is economic diversity. But certainly thinking about the diversity of our students. We try to be rigorous conceptually and not algebraically. Again, we know algebra is really a big problem and a big hurdle, particularly for some of our underprepared students. We also are very liberal in our use of technology for things that are freely available on campus. And so we're not requiring students to be purchasing or investing in things that sort of creates another hurdle for their being part of our department. So that is the end of my slides, and I'll be happy to talk about any of that.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the chat, if you have questions for a particular speaker or just general questions on this topic, feel free to put them in the chat so that when we go to the Q&A, we'll have a set of questions to start off the discussion. All right, next we're going to hear from Scott.
Thank you, Michael. Now I have to hold on. Have to get the right window that I'm sharing. Here we go. All right. So here are, in fact, the points that Joan Farini Mundy made at the first webinar on this, the chair's webinar. And I want to say two comments about these points, or give two perspectives. So the first two items, and that is, which are part of general education, these are part of your campus's accreditation. And accreditation on campus is always done by campus-wide committees. So my first guidance is, as chair, you should make sure that you always have faculty on these committees, because these committees are deciding the layout of general education on your campus. And you should have them there first because you have a stake. Well, first because, in a sense, political reasons. That is, you don't want these committees making decisions without you. The other is you should have faculty there to as sign that your department's engaged in general education. and that it's important to your department. Then on the third bullet, I now want to describe a different way to think about your courses. So as mathematicians, when we think about our department courses, we think of it in a way in a certain tree structure. So it has roots, which are the entry-level courses, and then there's some main channels, which I say are the trunk, and then there's the upper-level courses, which are the branches. And when anyone speaks to us about our courses, that's how we tend to think of our curriculum. I'm now going to cast a different way to think about your curriculum. So on your campus, think of the main large audiences. So you have social science majors, that's a large audience. You have arts and humanities, life science. Think for each of these audiences, the total number of credit hours your department spends teaching that audience. All right, that distribution's quite different than thinking about the tree layout of your courses. And I pose to you that this histogram that I'm describing is in good part how your administration looks at your teaching. So they're looking major audience by major audience of how you're serving that audience. So in particular, in this perspective, in fact, math majors are only a very small piece of this. So for instance, one that certainly is a large piece, I'm going to say no matter whether you're college or a large university, are social science majors. You're doing a lot of teaching the social science majors. This is an important audience to your administration. So I want to give you that thought. Now I'm going to go into my own particular comments from my own campus. So the first is, in my home department, we've been partnering with engineering and education for over 40 years. And engineering, we consult with them, so not that often, but we probably every 5 years, and we listen carefully to what they want to have in the courses. And that's in fact the main guidance we follow for the freshman and sophomore traditional courses, and that is the wishes of the engineering college. We made arrangements with the education college that the math major fits in a terms of coursework and scheduling with the secondary math ed. We made these beginning arrangements 40 years ago. In fact, colleagues who are older than myself, so they have been in place quite a long time. This is something I pose that you should consider on your own campus, and that is forming ongoing partnerships with key departments that have good numbers of students in your courses. Now, I'm going to give another example from my campus. So my campus, there's about a half dozen departments that teach elementary stat, and I've given the beginning of the list there. Well, in fact, the math department's been the most flexible about what's in the curriculum of the course. And I believe we were, at least from this list, the first department to start adding elements of data science into the course. A consequence of this is, on our campus, the math department's considered the go-to department for the elementary stat course. In fact, the other departments are viewed as being very proprietary and having somewhat inflexible syllabi. We're viewed that when there's special need, and we're also viewed in terms of large numbers as the key part, in fact, as the number one party teaching this course. So I present this as an example. You might think about ways in which that you could affect that on your own campus. And now, something that as chair I did spend a lot of attention to I know the funding processes on different campuses are vary greatly, but certainly over time, it's the case that funding follows large enrollments. And I'll stop with that statement. Oh, Michael, you're turned off.
Yeah, I pressed it too quickly. Thank you, Scott, for that. So we have a Q&A session here, and I'm not seeing a lot of new questions. So I'm going to start off with a question I've heard some people say, and this is open to all four panelists. The question is the following. So far, I know that there are cuts at various universities throughout the US, but my university and department haven't seen any real extensive cuts yet. But I'm concerned that might happen in the future. Can you give me one thing that you would recommend I do to proactively reduce the possibility that we would see a cut? So for each panelist, give me one thing that I could do to proactively make my department have a less of a chance of seeing a cut. This is where the panelists now respond.
Oh, actually, I'll go because I have my item. Be seen as one of the key providers of quality courses, particularly for large-scale general ed courses. So be seen as key to quality general ed.
I guess I would say to me, seems like a contextualized question. So what I would say is first figure out what your university has as its high level priorities, and then think about how your department supports those priorities. So at Towson, we have two main goals, and that is to become an R2 institution and to increase our 4-year graduation rate. So everything I think about trying to do, I can sell it in terms of either one or both of those two priorities. I know that's a non-answer, but
I'll go ahead and add, I guess, be seen as a department that plays well with others. That's a kind of a broad statement and kind of builds off what Sandy said in terms of the particular, context of your university. But I think if you're seen as a department that is assisting others, that is helping things move forward on your campus, that helps in a great number of ways, as well as, right, I mean, trying to increase enrollment is really sort of, I think to Scott's point about enrollment being correlated with funding is an important factor.
Yeah, I guess I would want to follow up on that. This is something that we do both at the undergraduate level and at the graduate level. That when you look at the intellectual activities of the department, in our colloquium, we have representatives from many different fields giving talks in the colloquium, which indicates that we are vital to the research activities of the department. Moreover, when you look at course loads, when you look at how many students are enrolling, especially in the upper division courses, these courses are filled not only with math majors, but in fact with students from all over the university. So we are vital to the education of our students.
All right. There's a question from John saying, I'm less worried about program or faculty cuts than I am about than I am having full-time lecturer instructor positions replaced with adjuncts. Advice on how to advocate for retaining full-time faculty or replacing adjuncts with full-time instructor lecturers.
I'll jump in first again. So full-time faculty, whether they're tenure track or not, can be integrated into the department's vision and the department's approach. Someone who comes and teaches just for a semester and then leaves, they're not in any way part of the department culture. So you have people, you can have instructors in the classroom that don't have any understanding of the department's vision of what they're trying to achieve. And that contrasts again with people who are full-time are part of the culture and part of the mission and that the department's trying to carry out.
You know, when you think about what faculty do, of course, at the graduate level, they support graduate students. And so for that, you need tenure track faculty as opposed to part-time instructors. But you can also ask at the graduate level, how relevant are the research faculty? So one important thing is to catalog the research activities that undergraduates participate in with the faculty as an indication of the vitality of the undergraduate program.
Okay, great. Here's another question from Suleiman. Could you give more details on how you actively involve math majors to participate in math club or community building activities?
Yeah, that's probably for me, and I'll be happy to do that. You know, we get all of our faculty to advertise in any class that could possibly have a math major or stat major or CS. Free food is really our biggest friend. And so we offer food and soda and cookies. We tend to do it, we keep a Friday early afternoon slot open. And we tell students when they are presenting to invite all their friends from across campus. And we don't care at all whether their folks are majors or not. And we do a good job, I think, of promoting it in the early courses so that folks who are maybe in Calc 2, thinking about being a major, you know, come to this, and our faculty go too. And so I think the faculty being seen there helps to build the community as well.
I guess I would add, for us, a strategy that's been really helpful in building interest is to have sort of champions. So, you know, I think of them as champions in my mind. I have a relatively recent faculty who just really connects well with students. They're just the kind of person who gets along well with undergrads. And so that's the person that we put in charge of the math club, because they have that sort of naturally gravitating personality. And then I've identified about 2 or 3 seniors who are, you know, undergraduate students, also really able to connect with students, but who have that kind of like pull people in tendency and put them in the role of bringing people to math club. Similar, we've built a dedicated space for our math majors, and that's been really helpful. And just like, so they know there's always this sort of one place to go, and free food is always. I have a colleague who was brought up in Russia, and he has a great proverb, which is that the only free cheese is in the mousetrap. But I think we use that to our advantage to get students in, and then we spring the math on them.
One activity that our department started more than 20 years ago at least, is that faculty who teach upper division courses are asked to spend one of their office hours in the math center. This is where students congregate. So they hold their office hours there. And that means that if they're not helping one of their students, they can help any student. And so that's a very popular activity. We also think that in preparing to graduate as a math major, you should also have had an opportunity to communicate mathematics. So we have a large program of undergraduate teaching assistants that participate in many different courses on campus. And when you look at activities that the university has for outreach, we have, for example, university ambassadors. We always have math majors participating in that. In fact, we have more than the usual participation. because many of the students in other areas also have a math major or a math minor as part of their curriculum. So we are overrepresented in these outreach activities.
All right, thanks. There were a couple questions related to kind of an RCM model, and I'm not sure I understand what that means exactly. I think it's responsibility-centered management, budgeting at universities, but there are some people who seem to have at least addressed that idea. So I'm going to skip those questions for now. I'm going to go to the next one here that says, this is from Eric. Are declining numbers of majors commonly observed by this group? My department also has had declining numbers of majors, but the nationwide data does not seem to indicate this trend. And I'll open that and maybe put Scott on the spot because I know he's been looking at data.
Oh, sorry, I was answering Mark Michael. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot like that. So Eric was mentioning that his department has seen a declining number of majors, but he linked in at least a blog there that indicated that maybe nationwide data does not indicate that there's a decline in math majors.
No, nationwide, it's up a small amount. In fact, I might be able to put that on the screen or in the chat. Because I'm working on that. Yes, Michael said, let me see. Sorry. Yeah, here, I'm going to go to sharing my screen. Now we have to get the right screen. I think it's this one. Yeah. So this, you're looking at the upper table. This is at least data as of 2021. These are degrees that are being counted. They're actually degrees being counted by first major, but that's a technical reason. But we see that, math has been essentially pretty much flat for the last 5 years. Stat has grown. I'm actually surprised because subjectively I thought stat had grown more than this, than we're looking in these numbers. And we see that applied math has grown. And actually, if you added math and applied math together, that total would increase. So that means there's been some shifting off from pure math into applied math.
Any other panelists want to address that?
Here at the University of Arizona, we have seen a decrease in the last 3 years. And they think it's part of it has to do with COVID. And the other part is that there has been a decrease in the number of international students, I think mostly Chinese, because of visa problems.
Yeah, one of the ideas with the data too there is it's hard to determine what is exactly a math major. Does math include math education? And I know nationally the number of math education majors has gone down recently. Does it also include data science? Number of data science majors has exploded, or is exploding, continuing to explode. So there's lots of aspects to that. Let me go to the next question I see here. And this is from Mark saying, a difficult question perhaps. How can departments maintain high standards while also ensuring that they do not contribute to retention challenges at universities during the period of relaxed admission requirements? Any of the panelists want to respond to that?
I can maybe take a stab at that because this is absolutely a pressure that I feel really intensely. Like I said earlier, one of our university's top priorities is to improve our 4-year graduation rate. And I think this relates to a second question I saw in the chat that it's like you see your department's name popping up as the bad guy, right? As being the department that's keeping the students from fulfilling their dreams of being a business major because they can't pass applied calc or something like that. And so I just want to say, like, I empathize with that challenge. It's not something I have a great answer to, but what I guess the things that we've been trying to do is, I think maybe somebody said, like, have your faculty on the committees where this is being discussed to present that positive vision of your department across the board. And, you know, for us, it's all been about these supplemental instruction programs and additional support things that happen during the semester, during the summer, during our January term, so that even if students are failing their math classes because we're not willing to compromise on the rigor of our coursework, which I think is the right thing to do, that there's options that doesn't mean that they can't be the major that they want to be or that they can't graduate in 4 years.
Oh, I don't see any of the other panelists jumping in to respond to that. So go to the next question I see.
I actually could make a comment about that if you.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
So for us, we have a lot of downstream courses here at Iowa State, and I assume a lot of you have the same. And so I think one of the things that really helps is being in constant contact with those downstream programs to make sure that you are meeting their expectations for their students' knowledge that they expect from these preparation math courses. And so that can help inform those hard decisions, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks. The next question I see is from Michael. How do we get administration to remember your department's degree programs and research when service courses are 80 to 90% of your credit hours and the part of the department that is always popping up at the high level discussions, such as retention? So any of the panelists have comments on that one?
I'll
So we
speak.
oh, go ahead, Scott.
All right. So what I'm going to describe certainly has a lot to do with the personality of my own campus. And so I don't know what goes on in this regard at other campuses. My approach, which had worked well, was to presume that the administration actually was somewhat indifferent to the major itself and to our graduate program. And I viewed the interaction with them, the focus on service teaching, and part of my own focus, for which at one point I was reprimanded, was getting money out of them for our service teaching. So I was, at least in my own case, just focused on getting resources from them and that are doing a quality job in service teaching. But yeah, if your central administration were looking, say, at your graduate, I don't have experience with that, of a central administration looking with a scrutinizing eye at a graduate program for its own sake.
I'd like to mention an activity at the University of Texas at San Antonio. The department head there went and looked at data and obtained DFW rates for courses and for faculty, and found that, in fact, there were some faculty that were great outliers and did something about it. So that's an activity that is, it's difficult, of course, and faculty can be very opposed to this, but this is a very important item to look at, is to see which faculty are in fact producing high DFW rates. And if that's the case, it's time to start looking at it. Now, there's no doubt that mathematics has high service courses. And one question is, how much emphasis is being placed on the quality of teaching of these? Because, I mean, if they're service courses, how importantly are they viewed by the department? You know, my own view about these courses is that the purpose of a course is to convince students to take the next mathematics course and to have a program of study for the mathematics major that encourages students to take more mathematics courses as they look at the course selection and see how pertinent it is to their own mathematics education. So I think that we have to be more proactive in promoting the study of mathematics among our students and not view ourselves as service departments.
Let me make one tangent comment to that Bill and Scott were talking about too. With the DFW rates, if you look at what's happening in your department, and looking at particular institution or particular instructors and courses, we did that here at my university at BYU, and we just shared some general data with the faculty in a faculty meeting without putting any particular names of instructors. I mean, of course, you don't want to do that. You don't want to point out some people. But some of the faculty later mentioned that they didn't know that this was kind of like the expectation that the grades would be around this level. So some faculty were thinking the grade for calculus should be, the average grade for calculus should be like a C-. And when we showed that in fact, that the general grade that most students were getting was around a B in that class, then that faculty member rethought their type of conditioning or what they would be giving out. So they were used to when they were an undergraduate, they had heard that the average grade was a C-. Now in the department, that could be reevaluated because that wasn't what was happening in the department. So just having a discussion in your department can be really beneficial. People may be doing that on purpose, but our experience was that people were not doing that on purpose, but they were just not informed what was thought about in the department. So the next, I think we have time for maybe one more question. This one is from Carrie. How do departments provide all of the supplemental supports mentioned without burning out the faculty who are willing to step up, or placing unfair and unpaid burdens on faculty not in positions to say no? And Sandy, I guess, wrote something in the chat there. You want to just summarize what you said in case people can hear it right now, so people can hear it.
I guess what I would say is just we've been trying to be creative in using university policies and procedures to our advantage. So for instance, that's why we set up our support course as a 1-credit course, because then it gets funded through automatically. That allows our faculty to count it as on-load teaching. It doesn't something that I have to ask for extra funding for. So that's going to look different at every place, but the key is to sort of figure out what are your inroads to get the resources with the least pain. I don't know if that's super helpful. That's what we've tried to do.
All right. Any other panelists want to make a brief comment on that one?
Yeah, I just want to, Sandy mentioned in the chat using undergraduates, and I just want to echo and say that I think that's a really efficient way of doing things. And if you can get a cohort and get them well trained, that word of mouth is going to spread a whole lot. And it's going to do things like build community, but it's also probably going to impact grades in courses and retention.
Yeah, our ULAs are such an important resource for us because they can be they work with students directly, but they can also be our champions. Many of them we get from the math secondary education concentration. So for them, it's career development to be working with other undergrads, oftentimes in a context that's less challenging than trying to do things in K-12 schools. Like they'd rather work for us than to go into the schools and work. And on the whole, compared to other things that the university could spend money on, they are super duper cheap.
And professional development for our undergraduates should always be at the forefront. It's not just mathematics that they're learning, it's how to communicate that mathematics. So we should try to expand opportunities for our undergraduate math majors to participate in such activities.
All right, great. So with that, we've kind of run out of time. This is a really crucial topic that I think will keep coming up in the near future. We want to continue to keep discussing these types of things. So I want to end with the ideas of what are the next steps that we can do. Two ideas that we've thought about here at TIPSY is one, to write another article, not because writing articles is fun, but because by writing these articles and putting them in different venues, that more people will see this, and it'll keep reminding them of the importance of this. Another possible activity that we've thought about to continue this is to have a workshop, maybe like at MSRI, which is now called SL Math. Have a workshop there where we can people can attend either in person or virtually to further explore this topic and address some of these issues. If you're interested in either of those two activities and maybe helping out, either writing an article with us or helping us in this organizing or participating in a workshop, please contact me. I've just put in the chat my email here at TIPSY, and keep in contact with us, or you go to the TIPSY website and look at what future events we have. I think everybody who's participating here will be put on our mailing list. So we don't like to have spam. I try to keep deleting the 100 emails I get each day. But if you're interested in that, that'd be another way to keep in contact. So with that, we're going to end. Thank you very much. Let's all thank the panelists for their contributions.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Yeah. And I also want to thank all you that attended, because it takes time to attend these webinars and to be on top of this issue. So I hope everybody has a great end of the semester, and keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You.
Hey, everyone.